So right now you're working a job, you have a relationship, you're taking care of your kids, you got your parents, managing your property, and you're trying to get that business off the ground. So how do you balance it all? Well, this week on Motivation and Confidence, we're going to tell you how to keep everything right and balanced. Stay tuned. All right, everybody worldwide, you're now tuned into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best. And I'm your host, Tom Danger. Back this week with a new episode. And like always, please like, subscribe, and share. If there are questions or comments that you don't feel comfortable leaving publicly, feel free to shoot me an email, TommyDanger, TommyDanger @gmail.com, or hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. Handle is @TomDanger. And now we're going to get down to business. So this week, this is a question that quite a few people hit me with. And the question is, how do you balance it all? Give you a little background. So, keeping it all the way 100. So I got a 9-to-5 job, very demanding, like nobody else is a 9-to-5 job, right? But 9-to-5 job, 4 kids, ages 28, 24, 13-year-old twins, right? So different dynamics there. So I have kids who have gone to college and moved back home, and then younger kids who are in that dynamic of dealing with social media and learning their personality and living through a pandemic and not being that social. And then I have my wife of, how many years, Grace? Wow, she's giving me the look, right? And listen, all right, so check this out, right? So she's giving me a sly look, but it's easily like, I want to say 25 years married and about 32-ish years together, right? So if I don't always hit it on the one every time, shame on me, but that's the duration of our marriage and our relationship. And that's a whole nother 3-hour podcast in itself. One day we'll get into all that, right? So I have the job, I have the kids, I have my wife, caregiver for my mom and my grandma, property to maintain. Then we have the podcast. Then we have the music. Then we have the t-shirts, books, coaching, and probably some other odd jobs that I do here and there. So, and then on top of that, then it's pouring into the audience of just giving. Like, I want to see people win. I want to see people do their best. I feel like I'm no good as a human being if I'm on a journey to become more self-aware and do so much and being able to balance and not be able to give back to others. That's the purpose of Motivation and Confidence, to help you do your daily best, me sharing stories about what I've been through, and hopefully it will inspire or incite thought into some of you and to take action to live your best life. That's what it's all about. And then on top of that, in addition to living your best life, to sharing what you know, and this is something that I ask of all the listeners and people who are watching this online. Once you've learned something and you've mastered it, please gift that talent or gift that gift or gift that experience to someone else, because you didn't get it on your own. Someone else showed you, gave you a glimpse, whether it was in a book, whether it was a video online, whether it was a podcast, whether it was a one-on-one conversation. There's people that have come into your life and they have shed light and helped you deal with certain things that you haven't always been able to deal with on your own, right? I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. So, how do you balance it all? For one, it's going to sound crazy, right? But you got to mess up a lot of stuff. You have to mess up a lot of stuff, because how will you know your limits, what you're good at and what you're not good at, unless you've tried some things, unless you've experienced some things, unless you've had failed relationships, unless you've had challenges in your marriage, unless you've had challenges with your kids, unless you've had challenges with coworkers, challenges with a boss, financial challenges, unless you've had these experiences, you don't really know the direction of what you're capable of and what you're made of. And some of y'all are so afraid to go through the fire that you'll never touch the gems, right? Because the fire is what makes the gems. That's what makes the stones. So you have to be willing to go through that fire. And, you know, some of us, like, we just fear so much of not only poverty, but just not living up to someone else's standards. And that's one of the worst things you could do. If I were to sit here and say that I've become everything that my parents wanted me to be, I would be lying to you. I'm pretty sure that there are ways about me that they don't care for. But that's for me to deal with, not for them to deal with. So we're not going to get derailed here. And the question is, how do you stay balanced? And one of the most important ways of staying balanced, in addition to knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, is time management. You have to set yourself on a schedule for certain tasks. And I know for a fact from talking to some of you, you want to do and be so much to everybody else that you save the last little bit that you have for yourself. An example. So you have your kids. Your kids may be young. They may need a certain amount of attention. And we're not talking about kids that may have certain impairments or anything like that. We're talking just regular misbehaving, badass kids that you just pour into them time and time again. And we as parents sometimes, we want to give kids the life that we didn't have. So we just give them so much. And honestly, two things. They don't deserve it, number one. And then number two, they ain't never asked for it. We instill that to think that, oh, they have to have more because when we grew up, we didn't have it. No. You're setting yourself up for additional stress that you don't need to have, because now you're out there, you're trying to buy your children into getting things to make yourself feel better because you did something for somebody else. If you're doing something for somebody, you're not expecting anything in return. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. And that comes with balancing your time. Teaching your kids that family is a unit. Family works together. Each person in the family has a role and a responsibility. My kids, one takes out the garbage, one gets the mail, one does the dishes. One day one may cook breakfast for the both of them. We're talking about the twins, and vice versa. So that is a piece of time that we are not dedicating as parents to telling the kids what they need to do, because they know what they need to do, because we're going to put the habits in them. Now you may say, now Tommy, but my kids, they don't listen. You have to be patient enough to teach your kids to be responsible. That is the role of a parent. No matter how rude your kids may act, no matter how much they don't listen, and it's a lot harder because the influence is the phone. The influence is what they see on social media, what they see on TikTok, what they see in games. And some of them may start tripping sometime and they may say something a little slick to you. But at the end of the day, as parents, we are the head of the household. So it's not when you want to go to bed. There has to be structure. It's not when you feel like doing it. No. Your acts help to contribute to the rest of the household, because mommy and daddy can't do it all on their own. We're talking about balancing things out. So if you have that conversation with each of your children to let them know that they contribute, now you yourself are not trying to do everything on your own. Okay? Second of all, at work, a lot of us get so wrapped up in work and wanting to be the best and wanting to show our colleagues that, we can outshine and that nothing to bother us, to where a couple things happen. We wind up taking on more work than what we necessarily may want to because of our own ego. We feel like we have to do that because we just want to do it. And, I've been guilty of it. My wife has been guilty of it. Whereas when work is over, like your work, unless you're an entrepreneur, like in your crib, when you leave the office, the work should stay at the office. Because we're talking about balancing. If you're bringing the work home, or if you've created a habit of staying at work late or going to work early, when are you contributing the time to the things that you want to do? There's only 24 hours in the day. And again, in the time management, so we're talking about, one, teaching the kids how to contribute toward the household. Number two, we're talking about, with the job, working within the time that you're paid to work, unless it's a special situation. Some of us in finance, you have year-end close, monthly close. If you're working in retail, you have inventory and all that other stuff, food and beverage, quarterly closeouts, all that stuff, right? Those are exceptions, but on a daily basis, if you're paid 35, 40 hours a week once, your time is up, your time is up. But then, you know what a lot of us wind up doing? After we punch out, then we come home and still give the job another hour and a half to complain about it. And if you're complaining about the role that you're in, maybe you're not in the right role. Or maybe you have not taken the time to become aware of how you should not allow things to bother you. Right? So, home, work, when you talk about being a caregiver, a huge thing right now. And, in 2 episodes ago, we briefly touched on that, but you have to get help. You can't do everything yourself. You have to find the necessary help to help you out with those things. And in addition to having physical help, you may need legal help, because some of our families, like, they don't tell us about the insurance, life insurance, health insurance, deeds to property, bank accounts. Like, they don't tell you about none of that. And then you're trying to figure it out. And the last thing you want to do is wait until they expire, and then you're trying to scramble and figure it out. Then you got family trying to fight over a TV or a watch or I don't know, just a computer, a laptop, a cell phone. Like, you don't want to go through that. So it's also knowing when you need to reach out for help to build yourself sort of like a team to help you with the things that you can't do, or the things that are not your area of expertise. Okay? So again, as I'm going through it, I'm recapping it. Family works as a unit. When you're working at work, when your time is up, your time is up. 3, reaching out to people who can help you with the things that you don't have that much experience in. Okay? Now we got to talk about the relationship part. So how do you make time for your loved one? Now, that one is really tough, because it's sort of like when you are working on a side hustle or building a business outside of the other things that I just mentioned. Now your extra time that you have set aside, now every night you're dedicating 2-3 hours. So from 7 to 10 o'clock at night, you're dedicating time toward building your company or your service, because all of us at some point want to have financial freedom, or at least have the option, so that if something were to happen with that 9 to 5, you're not just strapped for cash, and you have learned how to be financially stable on your own. And that's the real way right now. It's figuring out how to make money on your own, because with so much and people getting laid off, especially during COVID, the real online challenge was how to get money without leaving your crib. And I think you could see that when you surf social media. So many people give you ideas of how you can start a t-shirt business, how you can start a consulting business, how you could be a marketer, how you can manage content, just all these ideas that are out there, because it's a service that all of us use, and that we could, and there's certain gifts and talents that each of us have. So as long as we're exchanging the services, it will help. So now, after you've put in that time with your dream baby, now you have to make time for your lady. You got to make time for your man. You got to make time for your significant other. And here's the key. Whatever time that time should be undisturbed, right? So one thing that my wife and I have made a habit of is that when you dedicate time to be with your partner, that time, I don't care if it's 30 minutes, I don't care if it's an hour, but when you set aside that time is just for the two of you. It's not the time to talk about what's going on at work, because you already did that over at dinner. It's not the time to talk about what the kids haven't done. It's not the time to talk about such and such gossip and what's going on and what mama and daddy ain't doing. That's not the time for that. When you set aside the time to be with your significant other, that is the time for the two of you to do a couple of things. First on my list is make love, right? Not just keeping it a buck. Build open communication, or talk about some challenges that you guys may be facing and figuring out how to work through it. Because when you talk about all the things that you do in a day, it's easy just to breeze through the day on autopilot, going through, doing things, and then we take advantage of, or we take for granted the person that's by our side that's holding us down the whole time that we're sort of making this whole thing work. And when you got somebody that's in your corner like that, you always have to say thank you. Thank you, Grace. I appreciate you. Right? You always got to say thank you. Thank you to the people who are helping you to create a lifestyle, to create a legacy, to create something for your family that someone else may or may have not have created. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to share for those of you who wonder how do you balance it. And if there's one more gem that I could throw in there, if you haven't done so, and I talk about self-awareness, look at getting a life coach, right? I don't think everyone necessarily needs therapy, but we can all use a deeper level of self-awareness. It's something that we look at the super athletes of the world, what they do, what the mega entrepreneurs do, the Steve Jobs, the Oprah Winfrey's, you know what I mean? They all have coaches. Eric Thomas has a coach, believe it or not. You know what I'm saying? So make that time to connect with that person. And let's say that if you can't even get a life coach, find a mentor, someone that you look up to, someone in the area of your life where you're looking to level up to. So if you're looking to get to a certain level in a business, find that person who is already in that role and just talk to them. If you're looking for areas of how to help in your relationship, find somebody who already has a solid relationship. Befriend them, talk to them. We're not talking about dumping your problems. You always want to be able to exchange something. Like when you're talking to somebody, if you're going to ask this question, maybe you could donate your time to help them do X or fill in the gap for them, right? If you're having issues with your kids, talk to somebody who may necessarily know how to who know how to give the proper guidance to children as they're growing up and even when they get older. Because again, living with your kids after they return from college, it's adults. It's no longer kids. So it's a whole different dynamic. And that's another thing that you want to balance out, the personalities and such. So when you're going through these things, don't feel as if you're going through it alone or feel as if there aren't resources or people out there to help you, because they are. This is Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best.